the NFL. We have Super Wild Card Weekend. There's a lot of intriguing matchups between people that know each other, people that used to play on teams, or a coach that used to coach somewhere. There's a lot of intriguing matchups this weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. I got a lot of picks for y'all. Back at last week and do a recap. We ended up going 5-2. The only picks we missed were the Bears plus 3.5 and the Patriots money line. Really thought the Patriots would get it done in what at the time I thought was Bill Belichick's last game, and now we know it officially was his last game with the Patriots. But 5-2 to finish out the regular season. Great week. We're going to carry the momentum into this week. So we'll go ahead and get things started on Saturday. We have the Browns -2 at the Texans, over under 44.5. These teams played in week 16, I believe, with the Browns winning 36 to 22. However, in that game, CJ Stroud did not play. So, I mean, obviously that's a big, huge difference, between CJ Stroud and Davis Mills or Case Keenum, whoever. I think Case Keenum played in the beginning of that game, and then Davis Mills took over. But I mean, the final score made it seem a little bit closer, 36-22. It was really 36-7 in the fourth quarter, and the Texans kind of scored a couple late touchdowns to make it, I guess, a little bit more respectable with a backup quarterback. But we know how good the Browns defense is. But how do the Texans handle coming off basically a playoff win last week? They went on the road and won a playoff game last week. How do they handle that? They're a young team. How are their emotions? Are they just happy with that? Are they going to be too amped up, too emotional? And I mean, that does happen when you're a young team, and I think it's very possible that can happen to them this weekend, and they come out too amped up. Also, another question mark for the Texans is, do they have anybody else other than Nico Collins? They obviously have injuries, and that hurts them drastically. But can somebody other than Nico Collins step up? Because they're going to have to beat the Browns. Nico Collins isn't going to be able to beat the Browns by himself. I believe, the Texans defensively, we saw, when they played in week 16, Amari Cooper went for he went for 265. He had 11 catches for 2 tutties. That's ridiculous. But I believe, the Texans have to put Stingley on him. And if Stingley's not on him, they have to double him. They cannot let Amari Cooper do that to them again. Like, it was ridiculous what he was doing. I'm pretty sure Joe Flacco almost had 300 yards in the first half. Like, it was nuts what they were doing. But for this game, I like the Browns money line. If you get it right now, it's sitting at about -136. If you can't get the Browns money line, if you don't like it, I like them -2.5 too. But I'm okay with taking the -136. I believe the experience of the Browns is going to be the difference, along with the fact that the Texans have basically already played a playoff game. They're banged up. The Browns got to rest last week. I know people are always like, oh, well, they might come out rusty. I don't see it that way, especially when you're a veteran team. They have a great defense. They have a veteran quarterback. They can run the ball. They got a good offensive line, and they got weapons. Even if they come out slow, I think they'll be fine. I don't call it rust, but you just start the game slow. And I think the Texans are just too young. I think too much emotion is going to go into this for the Texans. How just a couple years ago, we thought they were dead. Nobody had them making the playoffs this year. Not only did they make the playoffs, but they won their division. Nobody had them doing that. I think they're going to be amped up too much, and I like the Browns to finish it off. For the second game on Saturday night, this is going to be a great game. The Dolphins +4 at the Chiefs, over under 44.5, below 0 temperatures during this game, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, for the Dolphins, just think about that. They don't play good on the road to begin with, and now they have to play in sub-0-degree weather. Yeah, that just doesn't even sound fun. For the fans that are going to that, I applaud you and I respect you, but I couldn't watch a football game in that. But this is Tyreek Hill's first game back in Arrowhead, since being traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins. Kind of wondering, are the Chiefs thinking maybe they made a mistake and should have moved on from Kelsey instead of Hill? Kelsey's kind of looked like he's regressed. Now the Chiefs did get a Super Bowl out of it, so I don't want to say that too much because they did ultimately get a Super Bowl out of it. But maybe they are having second thoughts about that, especially the way Tyreek looks. But the Dolphins this year have no wins on the road versus a team with a winning record, which is just, I mean, you go 11-6 and you can't beat a team with a winning record on the road. That's ridiculous. Also, the Dolphins, the most points they've scored on the road this season was 20 points. These teams already played once this season, and the Chiefs won the game 21-14. I'm kind of am curious, though, how do the Chiefs handle playing in the wild card? The Chiefs haven't had to play in the wild card for 5 years now. Since Mahomes took over, they've had a bye. Luckily for them, at least this week's at home, so if they can make it past this, and they have another hurdle for the first time in 5 years playing on the road in the playoffs. But this week it's playing in the wild card. They're used to resting this week. They did get to rest last week, but they're used to having 2 weeks of rest. So I wonder how that's gonna affect them. Also, with it being so cold, you can only think that the drop problems that the Chiefs have had this season are just going to get worse. Because I mean, if you can't catch a ball when it's warm, how are you going to catch one when it's cold? It hurts. It's hard. It sucks. It is no fun. For this game, personally, I like the under 44.5. Chiefs have had their struggles. It's cold, cold, cold. It's going to be ridiculously cold. The Dolphins, a completely different team on the road. Obviously, you don't have a win against a team with a winning record. I think the Chiefs, are able to control the ball and run the clock, because who are they going to throw it to? You can't trust people to catch the ball. Now it's going to be that cold. I'm sure there's going to be wind. I think the Chiefs try to run the ball and control the clock. And like I said, the Chiefs won 21-14 when this game was played. I want to say it was in London. And Mahomes only threw for 185, and the conditions were fine. So I can see this game being a low-scoring game. I'm not sure who wins it, but I like the under 44.5. I think that total is way too high for how cold it's going to be. Getting into Sunday, for the first game on Sunday, we have the Steelers plus 10 at the Bills, over under 36.5. Not sure how the Steelers keep getting into the playoffs, but they do. Kind of just want to touch on this real quick, though. I did hear a rumor that maybe Mike Tomlin is going to be done after this season. Not fired or anything, but he's going to step away. Not sure how true that is. But, I mean, the Bills had a big-time fourth-quarter comeback last week against the Dolphins, obviously. Were able to come back, win the division, get the number 2 seed, which was huge. And was Mason Rudolph really the missing piece for Pittsburgh? I mean, since he's came in, he's been killing it. They've won 3 straight. But unfortunately for Pittsburgh, TJ Watt did get hurt last week, and he's not going to play this week. That's just detrimental to their defense, as a leader, as a captain, emotionally, everything. That really does sucks. But other than the Ravens, the Bills are probably the favorite to come out of the AFC. The Steelers, they've got their run game clicking with the two-headed monster they have in the backfield the last 2 weeks. Last 2 weeks or so, their run game's kicked it up a notch with Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. They're complementing each other great, and it's working perfect. But I like the Bills minus 10.5. I know the spread's big, but the Bills are at home. And after losing at home last year to Joe Burrow, not losing at home, but kind of getting blown out, the game really wasn't even close. I expect the Bills to bounce back this year. And I can't see them losing to the Steelers, and I like them to win big. I mean, the Steelers' offense has had – last week they didn't play their best compared to the 2 weeks before that, but I think that's them kind of taking a step back. I know the Ravens have a really good defense, but now Mason Rudolph, he was a third string for a reason. He's played, a couple years here and there for Pittsburgh, but he's never the season starter for a reason. I expect him to take a step back. I like the Steelers' offense to kind of revert back to their old ways. I think they might be able to still run the ball a little bit, but the big explosive passing plays, I think that kind of shuts down, and I think the Bills load up and try to stop the run. Packers plus 7 at the Cowboys, over under 50.5. Look, Mike McCarthy is coaching against his old team for his job. Like, if he loses his game, he's done. He's out as a Cowboys coach. Obviously the Cowboys luck into this 2 seed, which is huge for them, because without the 2 seed, they had to play on the road, and we know how different of a team they are on the road compared to at home, kind of like the Dolphins. The Packers have won 3 straight now heading into the playoffs, so they're building a lot of momentum. But the question for me is, we've seen the Cowboys have trouble stopping the run. So are they able to stop the Packers from running the football? And can Jordan, if it becomes a shootout, can Jordan Love keep up with the Cowboys offense? I don't know if Jordan Love can keep up with the Cowboys offense, because if it does become a shootout, that means you're throwing the ball a lot, and then that gives the Cowboys, they get to tee up. They get to rush the passer, do what they love to do. So I don't think the Packers can have this become a shootout. I think it needs to stay at the highest in the 20s. It cannot get no higher than it can't get into the 30s. Otherwise, I don't think the Packers have a chance. And I know the Packers defense has played better the last 2 weeks, but they really haven't played anybody. They played the Vikings, and then last week they played the Bears, and so they did slow down the Bears. But I don't think they'll be able to stop the Cowboys offense. One more question before my pick is, if Dak loses his game and maybe he doesn't play his best, is he playing for his job in this game, basically? But I like Dak to get it done. I like the Cowboys -7. We all know how important home field was for the Cowboys, like I mentioned. They play so much better at home, and that's why I like them here. And I don't see a way they lose this game without having a complete meltdown. And like I said, I think the Cowboys are going to be able to put up points all over the Packers, and the Packers cannot have this become a shootout. So I just don't see how the Packers stay in this game. Now for Sunday Night Football, we have the Rams +3.5 at the Lions, over under 51.5. This is by far the most intriguing matchup of the whole weekend, of the playoffs for the last couple of years, probably. I mean, the storylines in this football game are absolutely out of a movie. We have Matt Stafford going back to Detroit for the first time, and we have Jared Goff playing against his former team for the first time since these two quarterbacks were traded for each other. But Matthew Stafford did what he was brought in to do. He brought the Rams a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff has now done something Matt Stafford couldn't do. He won the Lions the division, and he brought a home playoff game for Detroit. So I mean, it's gonna be great. The storylines are amazing in this. But I mean, think about if the Lions were to lose this game. Talk about the worst way to probably ever lose a football game. Your old quarterback is coming back. He went and did what he was supposed to do, and then you finally get a home playoff game after not having one for so long, and he comes in and beats you. That would be horrible. But onto the game. I mean, the Rams are one of the most scariest teams to play right now in the NFL. Nobody wants to play them. They have two legit elite receivers on the outside, and they have at worst, they have a top 5 running back, probably a top 3 running back if you ask most people. I would say he's a top 3 running back, but at worst, he's a top 5 running back. They have a young defense that is flying around, and they still have Aaron Donald, on the interior. But Detroit is going to be insanity. Their fans are going to be wild. The players are going to be wild. Dan Campbell's going to have them ready to go. But are they going to be too amped up? Are they going to be a little bit nervous? They haven't been in this position in forever. Unfortunately, I like the Rams +3.5. I love Dan Campbell. I love everything he's about. I love everything he has done for Detroit. But I don't think they match up good against the Lions or against the Rams. I think the Rams are going to be too much for them. I believe that the Rams are probably one of the scariest teams in the NFL right now, and nobody wants to play them because of how well Matt Stafford's playing. He's probably playing better than what he was playing the year they won the Super Bowl, which is scary to think. And I truthfully believe that Matt Stafford is probably going to have the best game of his career that we've seen, especially at least over the last 2 years, but probably going back three years. I think he's going to play his best game on Sunday Night Football going back to Detroit. And for the last game, a super wild card weekend, Monday Night Football between the Eagles -3.5 at the Bucs, over under 43.5. In week 3, when these two teams played, the Eagles won 25-11 and rushed for over 200 yards on the Bucs. However, this was before the Bucs kind of hit their turning point in the season and before the Eagles hit their turning point. The Bucs went up, the Eagles went down. The injuries right now are a huge concern for Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts got injured last week. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown all banged up, all hurt, all should play, but all not 100%. Also, the Eagles defense cannot stop anybody right now. Thankfully, they're going up against the Bucs offense that has struggled the last 2 weeks, but I think advantage is Bucs offense going up against the Eagles defense. The Eagles defense is so bad. This is just a get right spot for the Bucs offense instead of it being the other way around. Baker Mayfield, I believe, has all the weapons around him to succeed. I like the Bucs +3.5 at home at night. They already got beat by the Eagles at home, so it's going to be hard for the Eagles to come in there again on the road and win again. The Bucs are healthier and they have more confidence heading into this football game. The Eagles have lost 5 out of their last 6. The Bucks have been improving all year, where the Eagles have been degressing all season long. And I truly believe the Bucks match up better. I feel like they have the advantage. They're not injured. They're not as banged up. They have momentum going into this, where the Eagles don't really. The Eagles are just fighting to even be here. They're lucky that they started out so good that they can be here, and they've hit their. I don't know what's going on with them, but I think the Bucks are able to cover this football game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks even win it. Now, I have 3 player props for Super Wildcard Weekend. My first one is Isaiah Pacheco over 64.5 rushing yards. He hit this in 2 out of 3 playoff games last year. The game against the Dolphins this week is going to be extremely cold. Paired with their receivers not being able to catch the ball, I think the Chiefs try to run the ball, keep the Dolphins offense off the field, try to keep them off the field, keep the explosives from happening. I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco gets 15 to 20 carries, and if as long as he gets 15 to 20, he should easily go over this number. For my second prop, I like Rachaad White over 23.5 receiving yards. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 5 games. The Eagles have the 31st pass defense in the NFL, and I expect the Eagles to blitz Baker, resulting in Baker dumping the ball off, getting his check down, getting it out to the running back, and Rachaad White going over 23.5 receiving yards. For my final prop, I like CeeDee Lamb, 100 plus receiving yards, coming off back-to-back 13 plus catch games, and I expect him to at least get 12 to 15 targets in this football game. Maybe not the 13 catches, but 12 to 15 targets, probably in around 8 to 10 catches. The Cowboys know they have to get their playmaker the ball. He's their most explosive player on offense. The Cowboys know that. They're going to put him in the slot, put him in motion, keep him away from double teams, and press, and make the Packers cover him, which I don't think the Packers are going to be able to do. That is all I have for Super Wildcard Weekend in the NFL. I can't wait for it. I'll see y'all next week in the divisional round.